A good friend and postpartum doula once said a phrase I will never forget. Help is not help unless it is help. In our Western culture, we often miss an important opportunity in our lives to change the quality of our health simply because we don't have the right kinds of help. The postpartum period often doesn't receive the care it requires because we both underestimate what it is that we need during that time, and we no longer truly have the women's wisdom passed from generation to generation for proper care during this critical time. Join me this week as I talk about how important help is for a new mother with postpartum practitioner Rebecca Duggan as we take a look at the golden month and what mothers truly need on their healing journey.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. So, we have been talking about postpartum as one of the golden opportunities for healing in a woman's life. And if you were not with us last week, please check out last week's episode about postpartum. It gives you a really great overview of why this is such a critical healing moment in a woman's life. And this week, I am so excited to have a birth worker who works in the postpartum field with us on the podcast today. Welcome, Rebecca Duggan. She is very active working with postpartum care. She's very passionate about it. And I feel very honored that she is joining us today to talk about her work with postpartum moms. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It is such an important topic. I just found, but we don't talk about it nearly enough. So I really wanted to have someone who has firsthand experience, both as a mom and as a professional, talk about this particular juncture in a woman's life. Because when I had my daughter, I did not know what I didn't know. And I really thought that I am an A-type person for the most part. I planned all the things, the home birth. I thought I had made a good plan for aftercare. Like, I just simply didn't know what I didn't know. And unfortunately, my postpartum recovery was not very well supported, and it led to health issues afterwards. It's actually one of the drivers behind why Moon Essence and Reproductive Rebel came into existence, because I wanted to spread the word far and wide about the things that we all should know, and collectively, a lot of us don't. Postpartum is one of those periods in a woman's life. And Becca, tell us a little bit about what brought you to this work.
I would say probably my own postpartum experience brought me to the postpartum work. I'd been a body worker for the last 15 years, doing massage, uterine massage, abdominal therapy. But I had my daughter 3 years ago, and you think that you're so prepared and you think you've done all your research, and you go into your postpartum time and you're just completely blindsided. Yeah. And
That's a great way to put it.
you're kind of like, holy hell. And my providers certainly didn't prep me in any way. They didn't give me any idea of what to expect. It was just like, here's all the support to get you through your birth, and then it's have a nice life. And you're like, what do I do now? Yeah, again, like I worked with you leading up to my birth, which was incredible. And I felt like just working with you was going to be enough. Okay, like I'll have Adrian support. I've got some knowledge about this, and then I'm just good. I'll rely on my husband and maybe like my mom and and then we'll be good. and it wasn't enough. And it became very clear when you feel like you're just literally losing your mind a couple months and you're sleep deprived and you're so nutrient depleted and just, yeah, you don't even know what to do with yourself. So after that experience, I was like, we can't be like starting out these years this way. It's just going to ruin us. That really fueled me to get into this work. And I did training through Innate Postpartum Care through Rochelle Garcia Saliga, and she's a traditional midwife. She work is really just not only in a professional standpoint, but from personally, like the work alone just really changed my whole perspective on the postpartum time and how crucial it is and how just necessary it is to invest in that care, not just for luxury reason.
Absolutely. And we do so much work, like setting up a nursery, and there's all the Pinterest boards of the designer Gucci flash baby, like all this
Right.
stuff, right? And the shower is usually very baby focused. There's not even a mama focus really in the baby shower, right? In
Like
terms of
somebody
breast
it just
culture.
like ads as like a gag gift. And you're like, but really,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's made fun of, not made fun of, but it's like jokingly in that way.
Absolutely.
What you get, baby gets everything.
And, like, I think about commercials like the Freedom Mom commercial,
Oh yeah,
where, like, it got banned because it was
right.
quote unquote "inappropriate," and it's no, every woman that I have ever seen watch that commercial goes, "That was my experience,"
Yeah.
because this is the real raw underbelly of postpartum is not a glamorous place to be in your life, and you have this beautiful miracle to show for it, but your body has been through the ringer. You have literally taken of all of your building blocks
Oh
to
yeah.
build this little miracle. And then what?
Yeah. And you're left feeling so vulnerable and like open and exposed, like physically and energetically. And it really does. And like with all this like openness about us at that time, we're still putting out so much energy with trying to feed our baby and trying to heal ourselves. And we really just like, you can see where you would just unravel if you're not
Mhm.
properly supported.
I remember that feeling. I remember being like, so when did I eat today? Oh, did I eat today? I can't remember. So you're dealing with mom brain.
Yeah.
And you're trying to learn an entirely new way of moving through the world.
Right.
And I see it a lot with first time moms. And this isn't a criticism of first time moms. I've been there, right? If I could go back and do it all over again, my whole focus would have been on the postpartum.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, I would have put instead of I had a midwife, home birth assistant, team that cared for me that I wouldn't trade for anything. But some of the things that I had put money into, like setting my daughter's nursery up and all of that stuff, like you find when you actually have the baby, they're probably going to lay next to you because they're going to need to nurse every 2 hours. And that big glamorous room could have financially become a postpartum package that you're getting nursing support. Somebody is helping take care of you
Yeah.
because
Right.
you needed.
It's like you might not step foot in that room for a month. Yeah. Like you said, it could have just gone elsewhere.
Absolutely. And like that golden month at the beginning is so critically important too.
Totally.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. It's really, like you said, it's really where you feel the most not in your body because you're really not. You're literally coming into this experience as a completely different person. You're not the same person you were before. And yeah, just like hormonally, like things like you spend 9 to 10 months like transforming your body and building this beautiful human. And then it's like all of a sudden you have this gigantic change in hormones. Everything's just coming down. Like everything that was just been building and building is now, okay, we need to reset now. So you're just building blocks. You're building like from the ground back up. You're building up your nutrient supplies. Your hormones are like trying to regulate itself because they were just like totally different in a different world the last 9 months.
You really are rebuilding from nothing.
You are.
Like, I'll have postpartum mothers that'll be like, this is rude. Like, I thought I'd be able to at least take stairs. Like, I've only been able to stay on one floor this whole time.
Yeah.
Because just the action of trying to take the stairs, they were so winded and so
Oh, yeah.
depleted. And it was like, man, my brain feels like it's been put in a completely different body that doesn't belong to me.
Oh yeah. Your brain's not even on board. It's
Not
but yeah, like we can get to the rest piece too, like how crucial rest is. And we have this culture, the bounce back culture that's okay, have your baby. You got to get right back up and get to work, or you got to get right back up and just continue on life as is. And you could try, but you're going to feel like doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get back into your pre-baby jeans.
Yeah.
But sorry, can you tell how salty this whole culture makes me? Because,
You get really angry.
oh, it does. It makes me so angry because we do need rest. It's such a foundational part of being a woman, like when you're a cyclical being, right? Now let's put this in the postpartum where your body has literally done the biggest job it's going to do in its entire life. And we're expected to leave our babies before we separate puppies from their mothers because we have no paid maternal leave here in this country because I'm in the United States and I'm talking about US culture, right? So the vast majority of us don't have any paid maternity leave. And so we're forced back into the workplace. Like we get this lame sign off by our gynecologist at 6 weeks. Oh, yeah, you can resume normal activity. And it's BS.
You're like, I'm not even close.
Yeah. I'm
The
just
thing
starting to
is-
think about these stairs.
Seriously. And it puts this like very unrealistic like view on like just how it should be. And like you talk to the most women you talk to at 6 weeks, they're like, I'm not even feeling an ounce of myself. Now I have a provider telling me like, hey, you're good to go.
Good to go where?
Good to go where?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the culture of your work. So before we started the recording, we were talking a little bit about the pillars of the practice, the innate tradition that you have been trained through.
Yeah. So my teacher, Rochelle, she, like I said, she's a midwife. She did most of her midwifery training care in Mexico, but she's also studied multiple like traditional postpartum practices from around the world. And she found that there were like 5 common themes, we could say, of like cross culturally, everybody did the same thing, where there was like an emphasis on these things. So an extended resting period is like number one, but that's like the main part. Warmth, like the keeping the body warm, just like that. Food, nutrient dense, easily digestible food is a requirement. Body work, but we don't receive body work for that.
Yeah.
That's a necessity. And community. And those 4 other things cannot happen unless you have community underneath you, which is probably the biggest thing that we lack right now. You know,
Absolutely.
we could we could do all the freezer meals, we could prepare all these things, but if we don't have a village supporting us and giving us these things, we're just not going to thrive, which is probably the biggest issue, I would say, is that we don't have enough help.
So I had a friend who was a postpartum doula who said, help is not help unless it is help. And I liked the saying. And then the more that I repeated it in my mind, I realized just how true it is.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a
Okay.
little bit to the help piece of things?
So let's see. We can go a million directions. I think, first of all, asking for help is something that we're used to. Mothers really don't ask for help because we just have this like narrative that we should be doing everything ourselves. And that's, we weren't really shown how to receive help, or we feel bad about asking for help. So that's a big barrier. A lot of us have to unlearn that and get comfortable asking for help because a lot of us are uncomfortable voicing our, and then also just having access to help.
Yeah.
We're so limited We don't, especially if we have older children. It's like, it's hard for us to take care of our babies when we're trying to take care of older children. So it's like, we need to bring in help to take care of the older children, but that's not always accessible to everybody. And it also, we have to choose wisely the kind of help that we do bring in. Is it help that's going to
Yes.
be like truly helpful, or is it going to make us really stressed and be counterproductive?
And sometimes that stress comes from asking immediate family for help.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole bunch of familial dynamics right there that can be beautiful, but they can be challenging in some households. And having a third party that isn't related that does this kind of work is more of a neutral way and a less charged way of, I want my mom to help, not yours. And if there's any funniness in terms of familial dynamics, having a third party takes a lot of that stress out of it.
Or we put it all on our spouse or our partner.
So
It's like,
true.
your postpartum plan should not be your spouse, like your partner.
Yeah.
They need support just as much as we do. Obviously, we need a little bit more, but it can't all fall on them.
Yeah, it's true.
There's like layers of support. It's like we've got mom and baby, father, partner, whoever can be like that next layer. And then we need a third layer to like support the whole family unit, so to speak. So yeah, we need like that third party to come in because we can't do it all.
Now, in the previous episode, I did talk about the importance of warm food. So I covered that one a little bit, but I would love it, particularly with your expertise in body work, to talk a little bit about the body work side of it, because I don't think we think about that aspect quite as much either.
We don't. So body work. So if we'll look at it, we'll start from like a resting perspective. So ideally, if a mother is having an extended resting period, she's not going to be up moving her body as much as she would normally do. So we need to think about a way to facilitate the movement of blood and lymph. So body work really is a good way to give her sort of that, just that nurturing, loving touch from a nervous system perspective, because our nervous systems are just like totally spun out at that point. But it's just to keep the fluids in the body moving. So it's going to help her healing, help the tissues heal. It's going to help with her breast milk production. And also it's like an act of reciprocity too. So mothers are putting out so much throughout the day with just their care and their attention and their milk and all that. It's like she needs something brought back to her. So that's the reciprocity piece. It's a way of giving back and nurturing the mother so that she can continue to give out to the baby. And it's just this whole like cycling thing. But yeah, uterine massage, I would say, is like really important, just given the event of giving birth and helping the organs come back to where they're supposed to be in the abdomen. I think you find that people have a lot of like digestive issues postpartum or just menstrual issues because those organs just weren't tended to early on. And yeah, it's important. But I also I'll find that a lot of women have like rib cages that are like splayed open and hips that are still splayed open, even like here postpartum, because if they didn't receive body work, they didn't have the chance for those structures to come back into alignment with each other. So it's important. Yeah.
Now, how soon after like a vaginal birth, because I'm sure it's different with a cesarean, but after a vaginal birth, can you have abdominal massage done?
As a rule of thumb, you can do it right away. I wouldn't do any direct pressure over the uterus as long as you're bleeding. So once the blood either clears or just becomes really light or yellowy even, you can start work. You can start work right away. The sooner you get to it, the better, really. Like I said, you want to start getting the body warm. You want to start facilitating that movement as early as you can. And cesarean, usually like 6 to 8 weeks at least. Wait, just as a precaution. But you can do more. You can do other types of body work. You can do craniosacral work pretty early. You Reiki. I think especially too, coming from a really traumatic birth, it's good to get your hands on her, just help her like process the birth when she's ready, of course. But
Yeah, see, steaming, I can start steaming people fairly early on, it depending on what their bleeding pattern looks like. and it delivers that warmth and it helps to bring organs back into place the way that you were talking about. But I love the bodywork aspect of it because it's that somatic experience that when you're birthing, there's a very spiritual part to this where you're bringing your baby earth side,
Yeah.
right? And so where you were talking about being physically and energetically very open, that loving touch is a really important part of grounding you back into your body.
Yeah. Oh, and also with the innate training too, we learned like closing of the bones. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's like like the ceremonial piece of we use a verbozo, like a long cloth, and you can wrap the head, the stomach, you go through the whole body and you just wrap and hold. And it's like a cocoon. It's like you're holding her in this like tight little cocoon so that she can like physically and energetically come back into her body from being so outward for so long. And yeah, it's a way to just bring like extreme grounding and allow her to process her experience and close her up, so to speak. So I feel like that's a really good, important piece that we like to incorporate with our work, especially like if I'm ending my time, however, it's 6 weeks or 12 weeks with the mother, it's nice to end sort of our time together with that ceremony piece. And it's also honoring the rite of passage that kind of gets that completion piece, lets her be seen.
Yeah, we are missing that rite of passage in so many aspects in our Western culture now. Like we
Yeah.
used to have rites of passage when you would have your first menses, and other cultures still hold that beautiful ceremony around crossing that threshold from the maiden into the mother role in their life. And I've always been fascinated, but actually don't know a lot about closing of the bones, although it was something that I said if I was ever able to get pregnant again, I definitely wanted to have done because I think it's really a beautiful way of honoring this transformation. Because even if you've had more than one birth, you still are transforming into a different version of yourself. There's a metamorphosis that takes place.
Time. Yeah, it's each time. Like you should have it done no matter how many times. And that's a cross-cultural practice. The way we were taught was through like Mexican culture and it's holding of the bones, but it's widely done around the world. Just it could be it could vary in terms of like verbiage and whatnot. But it's acknowledging the completion of that transformation. And I think for a rite of passage to be completed, the person going through it needs to come out feeling like they're transformed, they need to feel empowered and exalted and seen, witnessed. But a lot of us don't. We don't have that. We don't have that completion.
Yeah.
So,
We don't, and, like, one thing that I remember laying there right after I had my daughter, and she was laying in my arms, and she was cooing, and I could smell soup being made downstairs, and, like, that moment is still such a visceral imprint in my
beautiful.
mind, and I remember it just as vividly as if it happened yesterday, and I remember in that moment thinking to myself, "Wow." I have never had anything in my life test the salt that I'm made of.
Yeah.
Lead.
It's beautiful though.
So why wouldn't we want to exalt that
Yeah.
process that it's huge and we in some ways because of the way that we mechanize birth in our culture, we take some of that reverence away from it. Like, women are powerful and birth is powerful,
Yeah.
regardless of your experience with it. Like, the birthing process is powerful and transformative, and losing the reverence around it is really heartbreaking. And I think that it's something that deep down we all want back.
Oh yeah. And there's like a huge grief that comes with that we like need to sit with because like we speak of these things and it's the reason why it resonates so much in our bodies because we know these things like we just know it because that's how it used to be and that's how it really should be and we just don't get that in our modern day. So there is a lot of grief. We have to come to terms with the care or the support that we wanted but didn't get, and vice versa. But I also feel like we're shifting right now.
Yeah.
There's more awareness, and there's more, like I said, just with your work in general, it's just becoming more aware that this is this type of care and acknowledgement during this time is very necessary. It's crucial, really, raising the next generation of humans. So if the mothers aren't taken care of, can't take care of the next generation.
Exactly.
Our
Exactly.
humanity relies on it.
Yep, our humanity absolutely does. And in our emotional state. So this is where the Chinese medicine practitioner in me can't turn my brain off, because our emotional state during our pregnancy, our overarching emotional state, right? Because obviously that stuff fluctuates on a day-to-day basis, but our overarching emotional state while we're pregnant has an imprint on our baby. Our postpartum experience and how we are feeling affects our breast milk, people.
Yeah.
It affects our breast milk, which affects our child. This is very real.
Yeah.
And we're just not well supported enough. So from your perspective, if you could speak directly to a first-time mom and say, this is what you need and why, what would you tell them?
You need why? God, she needs support. First and foremost, you don't think you can do this on your own. Don't think your partner can do it for you. You need some sort of support. But yeah, I don't know. It could be a million things. Where do you go?
I know. It's such a dense topic, right? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but support is multidimensional.
It sounds so simple. Yes, it's simple, but really it's crucial because, like you said, none of these other important things can be possible if we don't have help. We can't be properly fed without the right support. We can't have our sleep supported without someone else helping us. Yeah, it all really falls back on that community. We need a community. And we need to invest in it, whether we have to pay for it or ask or whatever.
Now, support also looks like little things like dishes, because one of the number one things that I hear from some of my postpartum clients is, but the dishes, they just sit in the sink and then they're starting to bother me and I get anxious. And so I get up and I go do them.
Yeah. No, it's true. And that's where investing in a postpartum doula would be worth its weight in gold. I know everybody says, yes, the dishes can wait. The laundry can wait. Yeah, they can wait until they can't wait. And you're out of underwear and you're out of plates. And you're like, what do I do now? And again, it's going to ramp up our stress response. We're going to get so stressed, and that's going to affect our milk. It's going to affect it. You see the snowball effect that happens from there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So even if it's with something as simple as having your dishes done, ask someone to do the dishes for you.
Yeah. And don't be stressed that your house does not look like Better Homes and Gardens magazine. It's not gonna, and it's okay. Hold on. We're going to pause there and let that just marinate for a second. It's okay that your house doesn't look like a Pinterest board.
No, we have to also meet reality as it is. And again, it's a lot of letting go that we have to do. It's a lot of letting go of expectations. So it's okay. If you can't have everything done, just let go that you can't do it.
I think that was probably the hardest part of the transformation for me.
Yeah.
My A-typeness was can't. And then I had family that came to stay under the guise of we're here to help. And it became more work and not the help.
Host. You'd be like, you have to host, which is the worst.
Yes. But this is the complexity of it all. Because you don't want to offend.
No.
And you don't, but this is why I said help is not help unless it is help. And the more that I thought about what she said, the more I was like, yes, that is so incredibly true. Because when we're worried about offending somebody and we feel like we have to play hostess and we feel like our house, somebody new is coming into my house, so it needs to not look like a disaster zone. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if this is driven by social media culture or what, but we just have this need for everything to be perfect for somebody to come in and clean.
Yeah. It's like hiring the house cleaner and then racing around to clean your house before the house cleaner they don't see how you truly live. And stuff.
100%.
It's like, why do we do that? But like we do
We
because
do.
there's so much pressure. Like I said, from like a societal standpoint, it's like there's just so much pressure for everything to be perfect, and that's not real life.
It's not. And there's so much of birthing that is surrender.
That's it, and it's scary.
It's
For us
scary.
to surrender because we don't like it and we're uncomfortable, and we don't like being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Our brain likes familiarity. It likes being safe, and it's like can't be uncomfortable. So it's a lot. This is why it's so much.
Yeah. Basics. What kinds of support do you recommend that a postpartum woman have?
So from like outside best practitioner support, like what kind of things? Is that what you're asking?
It could be practitioners, it could be practices, it could be things that are prepped ahead of time.
Okay. All right. So I think having meals prepared ahead of time is probably one of the biggest things because you don't have to worry about cooking, batch cooking, like soups. Soups are great. Crock pot meals, things that you can just dump in your crock pot is good. Let's see. Doing that, I would get in touch with maybe like a pelvic floor PT. Just if you're already not seeing one during your pregnancy, which you should be, it's a good idea. But if you're not, definitely get in with one as soon as you can postpartum, because that can save lots of grief for a lot of things. Seeing someone like yourself and getting a steaming regimen set up is great. Yeah. Getting chiropractic or body work. Let's see.
So when you walk into a home and you sit down with a family and you talk about what you provide for support to them, what kinds of things do you highlight as areas that they need?
So we definitely highlight, because I'm a body worker, that's my first thing. It's like we want to start getting her body work as soon as we can, as soon as it's appropriate to, in some way. I'll talk about the importance of that and how it helps with her body. We'll also talk a lot about, and here's like the kinds of food, the appropriate food that she should be eating. Like she shouldn't be eating a big ass lasagna as her first meal. Like, not this on lasagna because I love lasagna, because the digestive system is so shot at that point. It's,
Yeah.
you need food that's going to move through your body easily and that's warm so that your first bowel movement isn't like a scary event. Because you're laughing because when house that first poop after, and just food that's going to replenish her minerals, replenish the nutrients. I usually throw around organ meats, which make people squeamish, like we talked about, but it's really true. Like you want the most bang for your buck, get some liver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that every meat freer that's listening to this is,
Yeah,
but it's really true. Like I've had vegan and vegetarian clients who maintained their vegan and vegetarian status through their pregnancies. And then they came out the other end and went, wow, I feel so empty and I can't get my energy back and I feel fragile. What do I do? And a couple of weeks, and it's a super not popular idea. And I respect that everybody comes to the decision to be plant-based for different reasons, but including a really clean, ideally locally sourced, grass-fed, grass-finished organ meat product. You can mix it 50-50 burger style with ground beef. Chicken livers are a little less offensive than beef livers, but incorporating some of that into soups and things that you're eating, even a week like that. And I have clients go, wow, I hate to admit you were right.
yeah. No, and you're actually the one that like converted me because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I can tell you what, when I first started doing it, my mood, just like my mental state, changed like within a day. And I was like, holy shit, she was right.
Yeah.
So it's like, You don't know until
Exactly.
or yeah, and a lot of our work too, there's a lot of like ancestral eating, like we call it, like eating the way our grandparents, great grandparents. So it's like eating, things like lard and animal-based fats and
Yeah.
organ meats. And sounds gross to a lot of people, but there's a reason why they were so healthy back then and they didn't have the disease that we have now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't have the fertility challenges that we
Oh,
have today. They had more community in their postpartum experiences.
yeah.
That it was just culturally, it was totally different. And while technology in a lot of ways has connected us more than ever, it's isolated us more than ever. And that sense of interpersonal community has really changed and in a lot of ways gone away, which is really heartbreaking. And when you're in that very tender, open, energetically and emotionally open space as your body is reorganizing and adjusting to this new way of moving through the world because your hips are different. You physically move through the world differently.
Yeah.
And we don't look at and have reverence for just how important that is.
Yeah. And just acknowledging too that like you're not going to be the same body, the same that you were pre-children. You're just not like like you said, you physically will not be the same. And we're not supposed to. And it's just being okay with that. We're
I
just
think
with that.
I think that is an incredibly important aspect to
Yeah.
mention too,
Yeah.
because I struggled with a massive amount of body dysmorphia after I had my daughter because I had that cultural understanding ingrained in my brain that like if I took good care of myself, my body was going to go back.
Yeah. And there's the problem. It's because like we're taught that, like that expectation is so ingrained in us. And we struggle so much to get over that or just to like work with that.
Yeah.
It's just really physiologically, it's not the truth.
And if you look at ancient depictions of femininity, like the goddess of Willendorf, she's curvy all over the place.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that she's had a baby. She has the looser skin around her abdomen. She's had all these things. But your body is telling the story that you've brought life into the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but it's really hard to reconcile in our brains because of the cultural narrative that we have to just get back to our pre-baby everything.
So we need more people like talking about it and acknowledging it because again, it's something that like we suffer from in silence most of the time.
Oh my oh my goodness, yes. I remember because my daughter is almost 12 now. Whew, man, I can't believe time flies. And when I had her, I really struggled with body dysmorphia. I didn't while I was breastfeeding, I fought for every drop. I really struggled with breastfeeding. It actually foreshadowed the health issue that I was having at the time, but I didn't know that at the time. And I remember every day I got dressed, like I got to the point where I wasn't even getting dressed near the mirror in my bedroom because I felt so much shame around how I looked after I had my daughter. And I wouldn't have traded her for anything, but it really messed with my head in a very unhealthy kind of way. And I remember, but I think it was like 5 years later, she was 5 or 6, she was in school. And I was sitting at a doctor's office and there was this big book on the table and it was a glossy black and white large coffee table book of postpartum women's bodies. And I am sitting in the middle of this waiting room and started to sob like
Yeah.
a small child because I'm like, where was this book after I had my daughter? Because I
Yeah.
didn't know what other bodies were supposed to look like. So I just thought there was something wrong with mine.
Oh yeah. And everyone, yeah, it's true. And then because our exposure to it is like everyone who had a baby, they're like, oh, like I'm trying to diet, I'm trying to this and get that.
Yes.
That's all we knew. It's to see someone like radically accept themselves was like, you just didn't, it wasn't a thing.
And I look at Instagram and maybe it's just my feed because I follow a lot of empowering human beings now who really have done a lot to dispel some of the shame around it. But there is a lot of shame and there is grief because you're grieving this older idea of self-image that essentially goes to die. You're stepping into this new identity and you're not sure what to do with it yet because you're still mind-numbingly exhausted and you might have already had to go back to work and your baby is so little that emotionally you're having a hard time with that separation.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me, "I don't know how you went back to work at 9 weeks." And I'm like, "I went back to work because if I didn't, I wasn't going to be able to keep a roof over my head.
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice."
Oh, and it's sad. That's the position we're often put in. We have to choose between being at home with our baby or having a career. It's like you have to pick.
Yeah.
It's
And it
that-
makes the recovery in that time frame even more important though too.
yeah, absolutely. It's tough.
I know it is tough and I am so grateful for you coming on and sharing a little bit about what you do and why this is so important because these are conversations there aren't just simply aren't enough of them. And I think that and maybe it's because of that coffee table book too. I'm feeling very called to highlight that it's normal. It's natural. Your
Yeah.
skin is there are some people that are blessed with incredible genetics and my hat's off to you, sister, but like the vast majority of us do not have a flat stomach again after we have kids. Even when diet and exercise and all of those things are optimal, like the skin just is a thing. And like the stretch marks don't bother me, but the loose skin does.
Yeah.
And we have a large industry in our culture that capitalizes on us not feeling enough. And I think that it's so important, especially in the postpartum, to know that you're held, to know that you're supported, and to know that you're enough because we are essentially fighting an uphill battle against a whole bunch of Western beauty standards and lack of love, care, and support to hold us in this time frame.
And like we wonder why perinatal mood disorders are like through the roof.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
All that in a nutshell.
all of that and the nutritional piece that you were talking about, because from my background, some of the PA and PD that people have are a byproduct of not getting the right things in their diet.
No. And like also having to preserve speaking hormonally, trying to preserve our like oxytocin. That is so important. And so many things can just wreck it.
Yeah.
So that alone, we have to be really, and it takes work. Like I said, like we need a lot of contact with our babies. We need a lot of time on our chest and time on our breast and just being, the feeling of being supported and the feeling of being safe and loved by the people around you. And like I feel like that protecting our oxytocin is like crucial.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And some of that comes through the body work that you were talking about and the importance of touch afterwards too. So
It all comes full circle.
absolutely. So final thoughts that you would like to send off into the world in terms of things to keep top of mind as you're thinking about the postpartum experience.
Let's see. I would just say, don't be afraid to ask for what you need. As simple as it is, just
Mhm.
ask. Just ask. Support is out there. You can find it. You may not have a village directly around you, but you can find it. You can get the help that you need.
Beautifully said. I
Yeah.
think that you
Simple,
said
but-
it's simple, but it's not simple.
But it's not right. Simple word, not simple to achieve.
Correct.
But
Yep. And that's why we struggle with it so much. So I thank you so much for sharing all of your beautiful wisdom on the show today. If people are looking to get in contact with you for postpartum support, how can they find you?
they can visit my website at www.revivehealingnh.com. Revive Healing Arts is the name of my practice. I'm on Instagram, Revive Healing Arts, Facebook. but website's probably the best place to get me. You can contact me there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rebecca. I really appreciate your time. And until next time, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. And I will talk to you again shortly.
Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist, herbalist, sound healer, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment with Adrienne for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter to get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like us and follow Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.